You're listening to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation.
Hello there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Bad Batch recaps here on For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation. Andrew and Don are back here once again to talk about the mid-season, what are we calling this, premiere, finale? They're all airing at the same time. So, The Clone Conspiracy and Truth or Consequences. This is an episode to talk, but we're not alone here. We have a guest. You might know him from TikTok. You might know him from YouTube. You might know him from Twitter. Either way, he's killing it with the content. Caleb, how are you today?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me on. It's great to be here. Excited to talk about these episodes.
Yeah. So this is the first time we've had you on the show. So the one thing I like to do real quick before we get into the meat of the episode is every time I have a new guest on, I'd like to ask them, do you remember what it was, or do you have a story about like what first got you into Star Wars, like your earliest memory with the franchise?
Yeah, so I remember distinctly my dad went to go see Revenge of the Sith on his birthday, and it was very strange because it was very rare for dad to go out of the house like on his own. He stays at home a lot of the time, but yeah, he just went to see a movie by himself, and he went to see Star Wars. I'm like, what is this Star Wars thing? And from then I kind of saw the toys in the shopping centers, and eventually about a year later I finally watched A New Hope for the first time, and I loved it, and that was what got me into it. I watched the original trilogy, a couple of years later watched the prequel trilogy, and then it was growing up with it. It was really cool.
And now you're here being Dave Filoni on TikTok. How did that become an idea, by the way? I gotta ask before we get into the batch.
I don't really have a story for that one. I kind of just came up with it. I'm like, I would love to do a skit about Dave Filoni, and because no one's really talking about this upcoming show called Skeleton Crew, and so I want to do a bit of promo for that, because that's something I'm really excited for. And so that was the first idea, was how do we get some promo about this upcoming show out? And I thought that was a fun way to go about it, was by imitating Dave Filoni, and people seemed to enjoy it, so I kept at it.
Yeah, I did my video essay on the lack of Skeleton Crew hype, so we're both in the same boat about that. We're like building up the Skeleton Crew word of mouth before the show premieres.
It's definitely getting lost in the shuffle, isn't it? Like amongst because I know obviously like Mando and Ahsoka are like the big draws that'll probably be for most of this year. But Skeleton Crew it sounds really exciting as a premise. I'm really excited to see like where they go with it. It feels like this is a concept that should have been done ages ago, if anything. Like a bunch of kids like rattling around the galaxy and presumably a beat up old ship. I just love the thought of it.
Well, as we said last week, it sounds a lot like what they probably had planned for the Youngling show that they never made. Although now we might be getting a version of that with Young Jedi Adventures too.
Yes,
with our little blue friend. What a guy! But yeah, getting into these episodes, I put on Twitter right after I saw them that they might be my favorites of the entire show, and I don't think I've budged on that because, like I said, the first episode did such a good job of hooking us in without, and again, kind of like the Solitary Clone earlier in the season, they have these wham episodes, and the batch aren't even present, but like it relates to them because it follows the story of all of the clone troopers. It affects every single clone out there. So in those scenarios, I'm totally okay with our normal main characters not really being a part of that episode, especially because part 2 pulls them into the action and we get to see them completely like hooked into this, and then it ends up changing their like the way their team is structured going forward. And I was really, in previous weeks, I was really like wondering like what's going to happen? Where are we going with this group? I don't know if I feel like we might be stuck in one place. Now it's like, oh, no, like Echo's gone. Like they have to move forward now without him. And I'm assuming they're going to eventually join up with him. But this is, I wasn't expecting it, but I think it was such a great move. That doesn't mean it didn't destroy me emotionally, but we'll get to that when we get to the end of episode 8. Yeah, no, that was
definitely a moving moment. I was surprised at how much that moved me overall. Like I was like, I could feel myself getting a bit choked up, and I was like, damn, this is really working. It's like it really was like a push-pull thing. But yeah, it's best to save that for later because like there is so much to talk about with these episodes. It's kind of like, it's funny that you said that about like it being a wham episode, because even though it's a 2-parter and it's like comprised of like, you know, and also kudos to Lucasfilm for like releasing these 2 episodes like just on the same day, because I really feel like it benefited the pacing of the story, because there's a lot of the first part, the Clone Conspiracy, is full of a lot of suspense, a lot of tension. It's all building to something, and I think if we just had the cutoff, it wouldn't have given the next episode that same sense of adrenaline rush that we get going into it. Because I mean, it worked for the last 2-part they did like this with the Ryloth 2-parter with Hera and all the stuff on Ryloth, because that you felt like you were getting more of a self-contained thing, looking at like the whole of Ryloth, and then the next adventure you deal with the Batch, and that's more of a it was more of a kind of like 1 adventure, 2 adventure thing, whereas like this is a lot more connected and follows on from the previous episode.
Yeah,
yes.
I think,
And I also
I think it's
like the one thing I'll mention as well. Oh yeah, no, that's fine. But the one thing I will mention as well is that I'm really impressed at how well this 2-parter wove in so many callbacks to like prior arcs of the Clone Wars. This built on a lot of story arcs we've seen from the Clone Wars. The Five's conspiracy arc, the Senate murders story arc with Padme, and like obviously Trespass and all of the stuff with Riyo Chuchi. Riyo Chuchi is back. Yes, I'm so happy that she showed up.
I can't tell you how excited I was. But Caleb, you had a point you wanted to make. So
I was just gonna say, I think if they had released these episodes a week apart, we may have been able to theorize a bit more about what would happen in that second episode. And given some of that footage was in the trailer, I think having it premiere on the same day gave it a bit more emphasis and wow factor when, you know, characters showed up like Palpatine or Bail. Whereas I think if it was released a week later, then there'd be a lot of theorizing about what would be happening. And I think, yeah, it would have been a bit less exciting because of that.
yeah, I'll
So I'm
agree.
glad
with
they
you
did
Yeah,
that
I
at the
think
same
you're
day.
absolutely right. You're absolutely
season,
right there.
I'm pretty sure when they did the Ryloth arc last season, it was released like weekly and not at once. So I'm glad this season they're releasing the 2 parts on the same day, because the same thing with the premiere. Like if we just had the first part on the premiere instead of both of them together, I would have been like, this is a weird way to start the season. But like this, I thought worked so well together, where it just felt like an hour of storytelling. Like the episodes meshed well into each other, and it just the way they just seamlessly brought the Batch into the story was great. But Don mentioned ways of integrating past Clone Wars arcs. We start off right off the bat with that, getting to see 79's the Clone Trooper bar from the Clone Wars, which I was so excited to see, especially now that we see
cool.
like we've changed to the Empire, and we just see still like kind of the same vibe, but we have all these off-duty clones, and then we get introduced to Cade and Slip, the clone troopers that we follow on here. Cade is very like, you can tell something's off, and he goes up to Slip and he tells Slip that about the conspiracy he's heard about, because he has he was there at Kamino during the destruction of Topoka City. And as he's telling all this to Slip, and Slip is like, no, we were just following orders. Cade is, what do you know, shot down by an assassin. So at first, and I think the episode does a great job of building this up, I think at first we were all supposed to be like, okay, that's Crosshair. But then the fact that it wasn't later on, as we see, I thought meant even more. I thought it like packed a bigger punch. That's like, no, it's just this random clone, as we see later on. But that was a great little scene, and then that just led to Slip going full conspiracy and being the one that starts to attempt to blow up everything surrounding the Empire and Kamino. But just like that Fives arc in Clone Wars, Palpatine's always one step ahead, as we see later on. And I thought that was just a masterful scene when we get there. But we've got a long way to go before we get there.
It really was. Yeah, the whole sequence with like Cade and Slip, it was really well put together, and like I liked the idea that the Cade was the on board the Venator when it was like destroying Kamino, and we get the detail that they also massacred the Kaminoans. That like there's that line later when Halle Bertoni shows up that her people are scattered. That they were all massacred on Kamino, and it really kind of makes it even more horrific. And there's that really good line that Cade has to Slip, where he says, "We're not bad people, but what we did was wrong." Like, and it's a real distinction, because it sums up the clone troopers post Order 66. They aren't really bad people. Most of them aren't, but like they were forced into like committing an atrocity, and like the whole sequence is really well done. Like you said, we all assumed it was Crosshair. I immediately kind of like got a bit of a like something's off when I saw the helmet, because the helmet didn't look like Crosshair, and I even thought for a second, it's not going to be Boba Fett, is it? They're not going to have, because I was so relieved that it wasn't, because if it had been Boba Fett, that would have been a bit of a, you'd be kind of crossing a boundary there by having him kill fellow clones, I think. Because like
I was wondering, like, is it Rampart himself, and like, is he gonna frame Crosshair for this? But then
that would have been a baller move from Rampart.
Yeah,
like as much as
but I'm like, there's no way that sniveling little shit is good with a rifle. There's no way.
He's not the guy to pull the trigger. He's the guy to like get some other person to do it for him, and then he'll have them killed. But I also liked Slip escaping with the speeder bike. That was awesome.
That was great.
As you work out.
That was such a cool sequence. Yeah. I was watching it with a friend, and he thought, our first instinct was, oh yeah, it's Crosshair. But then the person kept missing, and we were like, Crosshair doesn't miss. Yeah. So that was another thing. And then our next thought was potentially Boba, but we thought that would be a bit strange as well, especially, if he came in contact with the Bad Batch. Like if he met Omega, how would that interaction go down? But we were kind of grateful, that it wasn't Boba in the end. Because that, you said, it might have been crossing a boundary in a way.
Yeah, I feel like if they're gonna do Boba, I think they should have saved it for something else, especially because like I feel like if it was Boba Fett, these episodes maybe would have had the risk of being a bit too crowded, especially because we already had many returning characters. We already had Rex, we already had Senator Chuchi, Palpatine, it's like Bail Organa, like it's like you're just throwing everything at the dartboard here. But again, great scene. We then go to the Imperial Senate, and let me just say, the Imperial Senate scenes in these episodes might be the best that we've ever had in Star Wars for Senate scenes. They were tremendous, just completely on the nose about the way the clones are treated, and related to the way that veterans are treated sometimes in the government. But remember, Don, there's nothing's political about Star Wars.
No politics in Star Wars. No politics, and definitely no bricks.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No bricks. Sorry about that.
One thing I want to point out is how interesting. I liked the contrast, because you've got on the one side you have Riyo Chuchi and Bail Organa, who represent individuals. They represent people, individuals, and on the other hand, you've got whatever that like I can't remember the name of the beak-nosed alien, but you've also got alongside him Space Marjorie Taylor Greene, who represent who represent corporations. Like, they don't represent people, they represent corporations.
Yeah.
And all those corporations, by the way, were separatist supporters. So it just kind of shows just the kind of like moral decadence that the Senate is coming under, because we're still several years away from like the complete apathy that Mon Mothma is confronted with. So it's nice to see. It was nice to see a more charged Senate, but that you get the sense of that kind of apathy growing, and like we see how susceptible the Senate is to being manipulated by these powerful figures, to the point where Palpatine doesn't even need to be there. He is literally, he only shows up at the very end when it actually gets to the point where he has to get involved, because he knows that the Senate is so easily manipulated when all it has to rely on are the words of like powerful individuals like the banking clan people or Rampart himself.
This is how bad it is.
We've also got to mention the senator from Rogue One, whose name is it Pamlo? Pamlo, yes, Senator Pamlo showing up. I knew
she looked so familiar too. The thing.
Yeah, I heard her voice and I was like, that's got to be the woman from Rogue One.
And it's the same actress as well, Sharon Duncan. Sharon Duncan Brewster.
It's like,
and it released on her birthday as well. How cool is
that?
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. It's just, it was cool that they got her back. It makes me wonder if like they're keeping her on tap because they want to have her appear in Andor, because that would be pretty cool.
I mean, I know we just had that. I just made that point about Boba Fett maybe would have made these episodes a bit too crowded. With that said, I'm going to be a total hypocrite, because the whole time during the Senate scene when like Bail Organa was talking, I was like, okay, so they're going to show Mon Mothma, right? And then they just didn't. And I'm like, okay, so I guess they're going to save that one. It's like we've had Genevieve in the studio too much this year. Like we're going to give her a break. But I guess it just shows how bad of like I am like as a Star Wars fan, and just like how like just deep into it I am, that the fact that I had a very like almost the exact same reaction when Palpatine showed up that I did when freaking Masamita showed up in this Senate scene. I'm like, yeah, he's my guy.
He said the thing. He said the thing. He said, "We shall have order."
Yeah, that was brilliant. I think as well, something about that Senate scene, you said before, Don, that there's two sides kind of battling it out, and because it's literally sides, because Bail and Pamlo and Riyo Chuchi are all on the left side and all these corporate people are on the right side. It's literally the sides going to war. And I just thought that was very interesting. And obviously we've got the good guys versus the bad guys here, but it was quite blatantly obvious with that, like physically taking sides as well.
Because it's interesting. It is, because it really sums up kind of like what's happening here, how the rights of individuals are being eroded, because it's what the Empire stands for. It's what it's such a great showcase, this two-parter, for like why the Empire is so frightening, and why it doesn't matter how much of yourself you give over to this corporation, you are always disposable, you are always replaceable. And that is why senators like Bail and Pamlo and Mon, and also Riyo Chuchi, wind up staying in the Senate and trying to persuade people, because they know that the rights of individuals are being eroded, which is probably a good time to bring up Riyo Chuchi and her appearance. She looked really cool, by the way. I like how they showed
Jennifer Hale with the Australian accent. I was like, this is
Jennifer Hale voices Riyo Chuchi. I never knew that.
I didn't know that either.
Is that her?
I thought
Never
I
mind.
recognized the voice. I'm gonna check now.
It sounds a lot like her, but we're gonna. I might be getting the actress wrong. She definitely voices Ayla Secura. Did I get it wrong?
No, it is Jennifer Hale. You're right.
It is Jennifer Hale,
which is so awesome. I love Jennifer Hale. She's great. She was great. She was.
I knew.
I've loved her ever since she voiced Black Cat in the '90s Spider-Man cartoon. That voice has stayed with me. But Riyo Chuchi showing up. It seems a bit. This is the thing. It seems random at first that she shows up and is seemingly all of a sudden really like she cares about the rights of the clones. But then if you actually go back and watch Trespass, there is a certain moment towards the end of the episode that really feeds into this story really well. It's like right at the end, after the fighting between the clones and the Tals has ceased, and Anakin and Obi-Wan and Riyo Chuchi show up, and she looks around the battlefield, and you see her linger, it literally the camera pans over the body of a dead clone, like with a spear in his chest, and you can see the pain on her face, the anguish. She literally recoils at the sight of like this death, because this was a conflict instigated by the greedy and arrogant chairman of her planet, Chairman Cho, bastard. But that was a senseless conflict that took the lives of these men. She already right there sees them as individuals, and it really informs why she is standing up for their rights, because she, in a way, she feels a little responsible because of the fact that these clones gave their lives for a senseless conflict that was fought over like the most petty of reasons. And it's the same now with the Empire coming to power and the clones being retired because, in Tarkin's words, they're too expensive. It's cheaper to hire just like anyone and put them in like cheap stormtrooper armor than it is to like have these warriors who've been trained for combat, like bred for war. It's awesome that she cares so much, and she gives them. She's not interested in speaking for them. She wants to give them a platform to actually voice how they feel, because as we see, the clones all have different opinions about it, and that kind of gives it greater scope and greater nuance, really, because some of them want to fight. Some of them just want to carry on being soldiers. They don't care really who they're fighting. They just want to serve their purpose. But some of them are conscious of
that in one of the scenes at the bar where they're like, "No, we should be out there fighting those insurgents." Just like,
do you reckon that guy was the clone on Dayu? Because he does have a beard.
Maybe. Someone brought up that scene just hits even more now.
Oh, absolutely!
After these episodes,
so much.
But we get even the way that they've been building this up, because they brought up that defense recruitment bill all the way back in the Solitary Clone. So then to bring it back here in these episodes and really put it on there, because like we knew it's like the time for the clones is coming. Like we just know it's going to happen. We've already seen the TK troopers, and now it's like they're going to try to force this bill in there. And then that's why I loved the scene after this meeting with Rampart and Masamita, where he's pretty much like, this isn't on me if this doesn't get passed. Like, this is going to fall on your feet. Like, you're going to be the one in trouble here. And little did we know that we had that, which, again, this really showed like Rampart getting his big villain moment in this episode, because his scenes with Senator Chuchi were quite like, I was like, please, like, I was terrified for her every single time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's one moment where Riyo Chuchi walks into the room and Rampart's behind her, and he kind of just fades into the background and like walks off to the side. And it was so creepy because I'm like, what is he going to do? And he just sits down and has a conversation with her. But that moment where he was like just in the shadow, his gaze was like locked on her. I was like, I fear for you right now.
It's chilling. It really is. There's such a great massive tension in not just that scene, but like the whole episode is like you get the sense of we're building towards like someone getting killed at the very least because of the fact that it is a conspiracy. It's like Rampart wants to close in the net and make sure that there's no one who can derail this plan. And it's just the revelation, like you said, of just who it is that's after Riyo Chuchi and poor Slip. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And I love the way that, like, from this point onwards, the episode kind of turns into a, like, detective story with Chuchi trying to figure out what's going on here. And originally when Slip approaches her, when she goes to 79s to try to learn more about the clones and try to say that, you know, she's going to fight for them in the Senate, because again, another great scene in the next episode is Omega asking, you know, where's the clone representation in the Senate, which I love. Senate Omega is just a gem, and I will talk about that when we get there. But getting Slip and just telling her like all of this stuff that he's figured out. And then originally she's like, no, there's no way. There's no way that could just be hidden, because she still has that like optimism that this is still like the old Senate. She's like, oh, there's no way they'd be able to do that. Like, we would help like hold them accountable. And in our mind, we all know, like, you know, no matter what they try to do here in the Senate, it's not going to matter, because the Empire is going to spin it in some way. And they're like, oh, we can stop this bill. And we all know that, like, that does not matter. You're living in a dictatorship right now. This isn't the democracy that you once were in. But it is still nice to have those like idealist senators, like Bail Organa and like Riyo Chuchi, like still showing that they're gonna fight. But the fact that we all know it's a losing battle is pretty heartbreaking. But seeing Bail Organa again, it's like I always get excited.
I was going to bring Bale up because it's. I love that he immediately, because he's very much kind of the antithesis of like Luthen Rail, because he immediately shows up and wants to help Rio just like kind of keep her head above water. And there's that really brilliant line that she says to him about how, you know, because it's funny how more and more now it's like I can't remember the exact quote, but she says something like, it's funny how speaking up for what's right is like seen as causing a stir. And it's very relevant to a lot of modern day politics and like discourse of like where people who tend to talk about like actual issues that are like plaguing people nowadays, you know, are decried as like, oh, you're making a fuss about shit. And it's like there's often, you know, it's very like you said, Andrew, with the whole thing with Palpatine as well, the whole thing about, you know, the way a dictatorship or just like a authority trying to exercise its control will just spin shit just to get whatever they want to pass. It's like, it's very grim stuff.
Masterfully done when we get there with our good pal Sheev does. But
yeah.
When we get more and more into Slip, and like I had a feeling the whole time that like he's not making it out of this episode. But part of me was like, no, it'd be so cool if he testifies in front of the Senate and he gets to do what Fives couldn't. But
well, yeah, because this was the thing is I was thinking if he does get that chance, I feel like Palpatine is going to have him gone either right before he gets the chance or immediately after. So, you know, like where Rampart kind of gets thrown under the bus, whether that would be if Slip testifying played into Palpatine's plans, and so, you know, the bill got passed or whatever, and then he was killed. But either way, I was like, there is no way that, yeah, he's getting out of this, whether he testifies or not. He's going to end up the same way Fives did with Palpatine manipulating him and just suffering a cruel end.
Yeah, no. And it was just so sudden too, because we see him try to contact someone. It's like, oh, I heard you can help me escape. And immediately I was like, that's got to be Rex, right? But part of me was like, is it Cody? Like, is this where we're going to get Cody back in here? Because we still get to see from him or Crosshair since the solitary clone.
Yeah, he was conspicuously absent from this two-parter. I'm pretty sure he's off-world. I wouldn't be surprised if the next episode is about Crosshair, because especially given what happens at the end of this story.
The name of the episode is The Crossing. So I mean,
of course,
that might be a very Crosshair-heavy episode.
The crossing, as in the crossing of like power, that'll be interesting. Like the changing of hands almost, but. Yeah, like you said, that whole sequence with poor Slip. I felt so bad when he got shot, but like, you could tell it was coming because of the way Kevin kind of score was just building and just like rising and dipping as like they kept stepping out into the view of the literal crosshair of the sniper, and then eventually just spiking when poor Slip took a hit, and the whole sequence was really scary because you don't know if Riyo Chuchi is going to make it out or not. We don't see her in like Rogue One or
didn't
Rebels
think
or any
she
of
was
that stuff.
going to. I was
Yeah.
terrified, especially because we had that conversation between Rampart and the assassin, where he pretty much says, like, if you needed to kill her, like, kill her.
Which is terrifying because it shows just how much control the people in the Empire believe they have over the information that Rampart thinks he can just assassinate a senator and it won't come back to him at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Her guard also put up a really good fight. I've got to mention that.
Yeah, well, the one immediately got taken out, but the other one literally got shot in the chest and then was still going, which was like pretty sweet. But that little scene when they go into like the warehouse or whatever that was, and she's being chased by the assassin, it reminded me a lot of the scene in episode 3 of Andor with Luthen and Cassian being chased by the Corpo. That
good
was
comparison,
yeah, not just the setting, but just the way it was framed, and it was such a good scene because, like you said, like we didn't know if Senator Chuchi was going to get out of here alive. But then the great way they framed it of all the guards are taken out. She thinks she's being approached by the assassin, and then we see a cloak, and I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. And then the stun blast hits the assassin, and it's Rex. I was like, yes! It was so awesome. Yeah. I love Rex so much. So
it's such a great attention to detail as
every
well.
Time he shows up, I get happy.
Oh, I'm always happy to see Rex. He literally, the last full appearance he had on the Bad Batch, he exited by walking into smoke, and then the next time, and then right as we see him here, he walks out of the smoke. He's just my man has a flair for the dramatic, and I love it. And it also shows his skill, like how formidable he is as a warrior, because all of those guards, as much as they fought, they were no match for this assassin. Rex comes in and drops the guy within seconds with a stun blast. It's so cool to see.
It's in a setting that he's not familiar with. There's fog. There's things that he's unaware of, and yet he manages to take out this guy, make a grand entrance, and it's real testament to his skill in tough situations.
It was like a Terminator 2. It was like a Terminator 2 thing as well, because you think he's there to hurt. You think he's the assassin at first, and then he reveals himself to be actually the protector. He wasn't even armored as well. He literally just has the Under Armour on because he doesn't want to draw
we didn't see his armor the whole time, which I was kind of surprised by. We just got like you said, the Under Armour, and then
it was very strange seeing him in something other than clone armor, because even in Rebels he has a variation of that on. So to see him in some sort of like flight suit or tactical gear, I guess, very strange. Like it's a cool vibe, but yeah, very, very strange to see him in something other than clone armor.
We did get that like the poncho look last season, but he still had the armor underneath. So this is different. Now all I'm saying, Hasbro, if you're gonna drop a figure or something, hurry up with that because I need it.
Jake will have opinions.
I need the collector in me is freaking out. But
a fine addition to my collection.
But then we bring it back for one more reference here to end the episode off, because they take this clone and they bring him to Trace and Rafa's garage. It's like, oh yeah, these are a couple friends of mine. They're out of town right now. And like, if you didn't watch Clone Wars and like you see that reference, like it doesn't like it's not going to affect the story at all. But I like that little nod. That's probably going to piss a certain portion of the fandom off because they didn't like those episodes.
Can I just say, I love whenever Trace and Rafa show up or get referenced, because I just know Fandom Menace types are losing their shit, and I think it's hilarious.
They gave us the "Is there an echo in here?" line, so I'm forever grateful for them.
That was a good moment in that episode.
I'm Echo.
I'm Echo.
Well. See, the thing is, there's no longer an Echo in here.
No,
Caleb. You got us
Hey,
right there.
He's not dead.
Damn.
He's just going away.
He's just temporarily. He's taking a holiday.
Yeah,
He's done a Sabine. He's pulled a Sabine. He's
Yeah.
taken a
He'll be-
temporary.
He'll be back in
temporary
like
vacation.
3 episodes, and if the batch don't come with him, I'm filing a formal complaint to Lucas. So get away from Sid. All right. Okay. So we're back. They have the clone tied up. And again, just reveal that it's just a regular clone. But like the whole time, it's like Rex is like, this isn't a clone. But we don't find out like what that means. So it's like, is this a new, like, are they breeding like these specifically to be assassins?
So I have a theory about it.
But then
I
the
know
clone immediately recognizes
Oh, God,
Rex.
yeah.
Like, you're fighting the wrong battle here. Yeah, but go
you're
right ahead.
limited.
Yeah.
He says you're limited, and then there's that moment when he calls himself a believer, and then he kills himself with the same electrocyanide. Yeah, the same electrocyanide thing we see that Imperial Commander do in season 2 of The Mandalorian, in the Heiress. But yeah, so I have one theory about what's going on with them, because and I kind of, it's sort of mixed with like the theory that Alex from Star Wars Explained put out earlier today at the time of this recording, because his theory was that what this is phase 1 of the Dark Trooper program.
Ooh.
Because and this is because in Legends the Dark Troopers started out as clone troopers who were forced into this program, and they had their biological parts replaced with mechanical parts. Some of them even tried to like kill them. Some of them even killed themselves because they didn't want, because of the horror of having their body parts replaced with mechanical parts without their permission. And Alex also goes on to say he doesn't think that's what's happening, that these clones are actually volunteering for service because the Empire is offering them a chance to carry on even after their bodies start failing them. Because like Riyo Chuchi brings up in the episode, you age twice as fast, so you're not going to be soldiers forever. You have to start thinking about your life other than a soldier. But for some of them, they can't even conceive of it, and the Empire is taking advantage of that and saying, oh, you want to carry on fighting for us, then yeah, like join this Dark Trooper program. Another possibility is that they could also be an early variation of the Death Troopers, that with the garbled kind of speech, or even the version of the Purge Troopers. It's kind of interchangeable at the moment, but it's intriguing. I'm a little worried now that this has happened, because they've mentioned about, Rex mentions later on that clones that have been, no, it's Slip that mentions this. Sorry, Slip mentions that clones that have been speaking up have vanished.
Mm-hmm.
And it's clearly implied that this is what's happening to them, which makes me very concerned for Cody, if I'm being honest. Because,
but I think the concept of a clone hunting other clones, is very intriguing to me.
Because like, is he gone? Is he AWOL really, or has he been drafted into this? Because we don't even know like what is going on in that clone's mind. Does he genuinely believe what is going on, or has he even been further like mind controlled, had his brain altered by whatever's going on? Because I could see it as a very grim fate for Cody, because we don't know what's happened to him, and I almost wonder if they're waiting to pull that gut punch. Because given that Rex is extracting clones, like we later find out that he is trying to get as many of his brothers to safety who want out, who want to get away from the Empire. It's a bit weird that he doesn't mention Cody, or that Cody isn't helping him. Like there's
he probably doesn't. I'm guessing he doesn't know yet that Cody has fled.
Yeah,
because Cody probably thinks Rex is dead.
Let's go with that. It's way more optimistic.
Yeah. And the thing is as well is if they did do that with Cody, that's a good like opposite to Rex, because we have this clone who's really good, who's fighting the good fight, saving clones from this terrible fate of vanishing. But if the opposite happens to Cody, another beloved clone who hasn't passed away, these two clones who have been appearing all through Clone Wars, for that to happen to the other one would be an absolute heartbreak, and would be a really good opposite to how Rex is.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because like I don't really want that to happen. But if they did do that, it would be so good.
I'm gonna act like Don never pitched this theory because we just saw Cody get out of the Empire. To see him sucked back in against his will would kill me a little bit.
I don't want to like have too much hope because I had that with Tala, and then I got I had to I had that punished very sadly.
Oh no!
All that hope for her to make it out alive.
Let's just think about what would be cool though is if this is what this assuming we see more of these assassins to begin with, but like it would be cool if this is what pushed Crosshair over the edge of like, no, I can't kill my own brothers. Like this is where I draw the line. But we'll see because he hasn't shown up in about 5 episodes. So who knows what's up with him. But then we move into Truth and Consequences. And immediately we cut back to the Batch. We see them on their ship. And then they are contacted by good old Rex, who asked them to help him out with a mission. And I love the reaction when Rex says it's on Coruscant. And speaking of that, I love the little thing that like Rex is like, he's been hiding in plain sight. He's been hiding on Coruscant, helping out these clones. Like the one place that like you think you shouldn't go is also like the one place where it's like it's going to help the most because I can get the clones out of there, especially if the Empire thinks I'm dead. But I love the reaction of the Batch having to go back there, and then Omega being like, what's wrong with Coruscant? And then we just see just how sheltered she is still and like how much she just doesn't know, especially in those Senate scenes, because she had been on Kamino her whole life and kind of just like shielded from all of this.
It gave me Rey vibes, when she goes to Takodana and she's like, I didn't know there was this much green in the entire galaxy.
Yeah.
It's so similar where again, like you said, she's been sheltered. She's grown up on this one place her whole life. And now she's seeing the state of the galaxy. Here's another planet that, this is actually the core of like the enemy at the time. Rey goes to Starkiller Base. It's just, the parallel was interesting.
Yeah, like she's got a very like the way Michelle Ang voices Omega in in a lot of those scenes. She manages to make Omega's naivety not like really relatable. Like we really relate to her like being kind of like out of her depth and not being aware of what's going on with the Senate. And I really like the way she has this sort of instant bond with Riyo Chuchi, and how Chuchi literally like enthusiastically starts teaching her about the Senate. Considering the in Trespass, she was very unsure of herself and constantly being bullied by Chairman Cho, and the Jedi and Anakin and Obi-Wan had to help her to stand up for herself. It's just really nice to see her like being more confident in of herself and actually being able to like pass on what the kind of lessons she's taken from both the Jedi and her contemporaries to someone like Omega, because this is basically Omega's political awakening, because she sees firsthand the injustice going on. And can I just say as well, it's absolutely hilarious to me that Rampart was this close to Omega in the Senate hall and had no idea, because I thought he was going to recognize her, and then when he didn't, I was like, oh my god,
it's the poncho.
Idea.
It's like C-3PO's right arm. Her.
It's just brilliant. It shows it's a great indication of his arrogance. It's like fifth brother.
And she gives him like the dirtiest look in the world too.
And he doesn't even look. He's like, oh, it's just a stupid kid. I don't have to pay attention to that.
I also love the way that he
fifth
just
brother walking by Obi-Wan all over again.
Senator Chuchi. It's like surprised to see me. It's like, oh, not at all. And in his head, he's like, no, the damn clone failed me.
One job. Oh no, he's dead.
One job, just the one. But I do love their introduction where Rex introduces the Batch to Senator Chuchi, and then you just have hello. It was
Yeah, because the camera, pans to Rekka, and then it just goes down to Amiga, and she's so genuine, like, hi, hello.
It was beautiful. Yeah, but no, I love the way they like we said earlier, they did the way that they had the Hera episodes last season, where we get introduced to the Batch partway through the story, and then seamlessly integrate them into the arc to like help them out on this mission to get the mission log or the command log from Rampart's Venator, which we get to see some really cool like spy scenes, and then the way that they just like hack into that droid ship to like get onto the ship, I thought was really
good
cool.
Plan.
Yeah,
it's a really good plan as well, and it allows not just for some further suspense, but like and just like some cool stuff of us like getting to see a Venator again and getting to go inside the hallways, which we almost took for granted in the Clone Wars, and like just seeing those.
They even bring that.
Really
I think
cool.
Rex is like, "Oh, I haven't been in one of these since the war," and it's just like, neither have we. It's like we're going back.
The thing is, last time, Rex was on a bridge of a Venator that we saw him. Was Order 66.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that whole sequence was really cool, and especially some of the lighting in those shots. I mean, both of these episodes, beautiful lighting. Coruscant, I think, really gives, free roam with that. You can have so many beautiful shots with the lighting. Some of the night shots, and especially the backlight behind the Venator was so cool.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of Wire vibes as well.
And a special shout out to Kevin Kiner's score in these episodes for just being unbelievable, especially in episode 7. Having
the
like that
was strong.
Different sounding music like we did with Solitary Clone, like in the Clone Conspiracy, I thought was great. And he's knocking it out of the park with the score this season. But what is new? What is new, really, with a Kevin Kiner score? Like, you just kind of expect it to be amazing.
You always know you're going to get some quality sound with a Kevin Kiner score. That's for sure.
I think Tech had a great moment too, because when they're going over the mission and like they're talking about it, and like Omega's just super confident. It's like, oh yeah, I can come with the sender to make sure nothing happens. And she's like, oh, you'll need Imperial authorization. Tech just goes, oh, that won't be a problem. I'm like, I just found that great.
I just love that Tech is like so enthusiastic to hack anything to do with the Empire after like that one time that he messed up on the Imperial base because of the Empire's codes. Any opportunity for Tech to like mess with the Empire's systems, he will just take. I also want to talk about Echo just briefly because, I really like the setup with him in this episode is really strong. Like, you have him talking with Omega at the start when she's trying to meditate, which was really sweet. I
forgot about that scene. That was such a good. Thank you for bringing that up.
Well, because she's not force. I've had my theories about her being force sensitive. I don't think that's where the show is going, because I feel like thinking about it with the whole narrative of like, Palpatine trying to find, constantly trying to discover a clone body that supports force sensitivity. It wouldn't work for Omega to be force sensitive. But I really like that she's still like, I love that she still is trying the meditation because, simply because she likes it, not because like it helps her tap in to the force. And she has that lovely conversation with Echo where he says, I joined the batch because it was where I was needed. And the fact that he has the past, he uses was, immediately kind of clued me in of like, that's interesting. He's clearly it sets up his temporary departure from the batch really well, because you can already tell that he feels kind of like out of place there now, because he's the one who wants to do more. He wants to fight the injustice of the Empire. Like, and you can see why, because like when we open that scene, it's like, I'm gonna also steal from Alex from Star Wars Explained again and say that it's like it's almost peaceful. It's like the batch are literally chilling. Like Wrecker is snoozing. They're like, we've just come from this like really intense situation on Coruscant with the clones, and the batch are just chilling on Ord Mantell, which kind of almost makes me wonder if that's like playing off how the audience is meant to feel. Like we, the audience, have been frustrated with the Batch for not being involved in the wider universe stuff because we know what's going on. We know what the Empire is doing to people, and yet the Batch are like, as far as we're concerned, dicking. Yeah,
and like
just dicking around
them, and it's like, oh, we're tired of waiting for Sid, and like. You gotta imagine Echo is just seething right now. Like I'm
so sick of that lizard.
Yeah,
like I need to help out, and it's like
he's been begging for this opportunity for a while, and so yeah,
like,
I think
go pick up my dry cleaning, and Echo's like, I need to get out of here. But like we said, the mission was just awesome. I just love that they go into like a shipyard, and like we get to see like the vendor like when it's not like operational, and then the way they set off the security system when they're trying to get into the computers and stuff, which was, again, the whole way they did this, and then the clones being alerted to it, which again, it's like there's something eerie about these clones going to stop them when they're fighting for the future of the clones, which was great. But then when we get to the Senate again, and we have those scenes I brought up earlier of Riyo Chuchi and Omega, where she shows Omega all the Senate pods, and she's like, oh, which one is for the clones? And it's like, oh, the clones don't have representation in the Senate because a lot of people just see them as military assets. And again, it's just still it still just hits home that like the whole message of the Clone Wars was that these aren't just nameless, faceless soldiers. These are all individuals. These are all people. Yeah. And then to now get the Bad Batch, where it's the Empire now, and now what does the Empire see them as? Nameless, faceless soldiers. Exactly. And in a way, not even people. They're just they view them as droids, and it's a shame, and it's heartbreaking, and no matter how hard that the senator is trying to get them rights and get them pension and get them, the help that they need, it's just it's not gonna work.
I think it contrasts well with Riyo Chuchi as well, because she's like this good voice for the clones, but the thing is she's not coming into the Senate and saying, this is what the clones want. There's the conversation. This is, previous episode, just jumping back a bit. But when Rampart says we're going to make provisions for the clones, they've already been put in place. And Riyo Chuchi's like, oh, do you know that's what they want? Have you asked them? It's not have you come to me and I've told you what the clones want. It's like, no, go to the clones, talk to them, see what they want. And then, she does go and do that. I think it's a real contrast with how the Empire is then treating them.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's just really well done, because it kind of like to get political again. It's kind of very analogous to how real life war veterans are often treated. How they're often like cast aside and not treated with much respect by the government they fight for. Even though at the end of the day they're waging a war that's like they're often like fighting in conflicts that their government has instigated or is intervening in. It's really fascinating, and it's especially prominent when we get the return of Halle Bertoni, who I didn't realize. This is my third time mentioning Alex, but I didn't realize that Halle Bertoni was named after one of the US's biggest defense contractors. That's inspired. Like it's like Star Wars is not subtle at all.
Was she in the Clone Wars? Because I do not remember the character.
She's been in, so she is in the Senate murder storyline from season 2.
Oh,
she's like that. She's that jerk. She's a total jerk, and she's very much the same here. She's very aggravating, because like you're literally watching her and being like, you should care more. Why don't you care more? That
she's like, oh yeah, my people are dead. I don't have people anymore.
Super apathetic. Just does not care. And that's the frustrating part, is like she knows it's wrong and she's like, I'm just gonna sit back and do nothing. And that's almost it's almost worse in a way than
Oh, it is.
actively doing something bad. It's just like, oh yeah, I just don't care. I'm just not going to do anything.
Exactly. It's what the Empire wants. They want
Yeah.
people to feel apathetic. They want people to feel like they can't do anything. And that's what she kind of betrays when she's talking to Rio and Omega, that she doesn't believe that anything she does would be of consequence anyway. But like, I do love that even she is no match for the charm of Omega. That Omega, and I love the way Michelle Ang delivers that line when Omega says, I am angry. I'm angry. I love the way she says that, and I love the fact that Omega is feeling galvanized by what is happening to the clones. I'm excited to see. There's been interviews. I mentioned in an earlier recap. Maggie Lovett did an interview on Collider with D. Bradley Baker and Michelle Ang, and she mentioned Michelle Ang mentioned in the interview that Omega starts to care more about the rights of all the clones as the series progresses. So I definitely think this is the start of a thread now with Omega, like with her being now politically awakened to like what's going on with her brothers and starting to care about the plights of clones beyond just her immediate family that is the Batch.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I just love the way everything played out in this episode. We get them recovering the command log from the ship, which again, the escape was also really awesome, and just the way that they just zoomed back in on the speeder to pass off the data to get to the Senate was great. And
Speedy
then
handoff,
it's like it's like Bail Organa is fighting this, but it's like, oh, you don't have any proof, so we need to move on. They get it, and then I was so shocked that we actually like got to the point where we saw the destruction of Kamino play out on these like holograms.
It
and everyone's
threw
just
me.
freaking out. And
Yeah,
Rampart's just sitting there like, oh shit.
I thought the footage would have been doctored. I thought what was going to happen was that they would play the footage and it would be fine. It would just show storms and it would turn out the Empire had doctored the footage and the Batch hadn't had time to look at it. But the fact that we actually saw it play out and we saw Rampart get called out for it and the Senate turn against him, it was insane.
Yeah.
It's almost like, wait, is this actually happening?
And
we
then
actually
you just see
and then the alert happened.
Yeah.
You hear that rise
everyone
up.
looks down and
I was like, oh no.
And like, can I just say, like, the fact that we're getting Ian McDermott voicing him is just so great, and it's the fact that it's new dialogue
so
too.
Good. Yeah,
because when we had him, because like, mad respect to what Ian Abercrombie did with the Clone Wars, portraying Palpatine. Like,
absolutely.
But
and
like,
also Tim Curry as well.
Yeah,
like, both
Tim
of them
Curry.
were like. Both of
which
them
is
were superb.
surprising as well.
I know.
Tim Curry as Palpatine is something I wouldn't have picked.
Shave him.
But then, like, having Ian come back for Rebels and then here now was
and Tales of the Jedi as
and
well.
Tales of the Jedi,
And
it's
Obi-Wan.
just great. Yeah, he's
Everything.
he's putting in the work right now.
The man never misses. Like every bit of dialogue from him was awesome, and it really gave the scene more gravitas that we're actually hearing Ian McDermott come in and deliver this speech as Palpatine, as we actually get to see Palpatine actually being an emperor and exercising control over the Senate with just his words, like
just seeing
the way
Omega.
he spins that whole thing about how, we still need the bill because the clones just blindly follow orders, and it's this horrible thing of like it's they only follow orders blindly because he programmed them to. He put the chip in his head. It was his design, his plan, and I just think it's just like it's the mix of aggravating and brilliantly cunning, because like even when people try and thwart his plans, he always is savvy enough to find an alternative. Like if his apprentice gets taken out, he has a spare in Anakin or in Dooku. If the Imperial he hired to oversee all of the stuff with the clones, messes up, then he can just throw him under the bus. And it's a perfect ending for Rampart as well.
I think it was also
potentially.
Alex that brought up. It's like the only person in the Empire that isn't expendable is the Emperor.
Yeah,
So,
and that's a dictatorship for you, because it's like it's literally the one above all. It's not about the needs of everyone. It's all about like just who's on top of the pyramid, who is like calling the shots, and everyone else is expendable so long as they feed that pinnacle.
I love the way that he Palpatine didn't even like try to like come up with an excuse. He's just like, Rampart went into business for himself, arrest him, and then Rampart being arrested by the Coruscant Guard and just the screaming, "I was following orders." It's like, oh, look who's the clone trooper now. So I don't know, like it's so crazy.
The irony, that, like, the delicious irony.
It's like we had built up Rampart for a season and a half as being the main villain here. So for him to just be taken out like this, it's like, I don't know if this is the end for his story, or like it's like, what is going to be our main antagonist going forward? I'm very curious with. Is it going to be what I think Don and Connor were talking about last week? Like, is it going to be Sid? Like, is she going to turn against them, or are we going to see more of those assassin clones? Or are we going to get another new Imperial officer that's going to, or maybe it's the one Imperial woman that we saw on Mount Tantus last season that we just haven't cut back to yet.
I have so many theories about Mount Tantus.
Yeah.
Anyway,
maybe that's where they're getting these assassin clones from. Like,
just jumping back a bit, I think something as well with Palpatine's entrance and throwing Rampart under the bus is, there's that alert and they all look down and Palpatine rises up. But it's actually Masamita who speaks first and says, these are Rampart's actions and everything. Just Palpatine's presence there. He hasn't even spoken yet, and already there's so much authority because Masamita, at Palpatine's literal right hand, is speaking for him, and it's not even Palpatine doing the talking, and there's that the manipulation that's occurred, throwing Rampart under the bus. It's just brilliant. And then once all that's done, then he speaks and he's like, yes, because this has happened. He hasn't addressed that. Masamita has addressed it. And now he goes, this is the change that can be brought through because of it. So even that manipulation of he's instigating the change. He hasn't dealt with, what's going on. He's keeping as far away from Rampart as possible. He's got someone else to address it. And then he goes, this is the change we can bring in.
Imperial Stormtrooper. And
the delivery of that line was just perfect. And like we mentioned before, Omega literally sees this with her own eyes. Like the Batch don't get to witness this, but Omega does. Palpatine. She literally looks into the face of evil and witnesses the Senate at its most corrupt. Palpatine just completely swaying everyone, even though we just saw they were all shown right in front of their eyes, just like the corruption of the Empire. And Palpatine's like, oh no, it's just the one guy. Get rid of him and it's fine. We need the bill anyway. Those clone troopers are shit. They listen to anything. You tell them to jump off a building, they'll do it.
Yeah. So now we're really seeing the true phasing out of the clones. It's like Senator Chuchi wanted to get them protection, and now they're getting nothing. So
and that's actually so huge. Like the transition from clones to stormtroopers, it's like, okay, it's a gradual thing. It takes place over time. There's 20 years between, or even 10 years if you take, or five if you take Survivor or Jedi Fallen Order or Obi-Wan or whatever, where there's stormtroopers. It's like there's a gap where there's the transition from clones to stormtroopers, but it's seeing this like the transition from clone trooper to stormtrooper, and this is the act that was the tipping point for it. That's huge. Like, I would never have guessed that we would see that the event that made that possible, let alone for it to occur in this way with these characters. Like, just the way the galaxy's intertwined and seeing these crucial moments that impact things, so much further on. It's really cool to see, and I never would have guessed that we would get that.
I completely agree with what you just said, Caleb, because it really it's I've enjoyed the previous episodes. Like I enjoyed Faster, I enjoyed Tribe, and even the one with Fee, which I can't remember. Entomb.
Yeah.
I enjoyed all of them, but they have had that side quest feel. They have had that feeling of like they're sort of feel adjacent to the main plot. And what I love about these episodes is that they have come out. They've not only just brought a lot of continuity back just to like appease fans. They've actually used all of this to tell a story that's like seismic, that really moves the plot forward in a way that a lot of us I think have been wanting to see from the Bad Batch
just
all
change
season.
The Bad Batch. It changes everything, like about the way we view Star Wars 100%. And the way we view the Empire. And like I said last week, when this show hits, it hits. Like,
absolutely.
And like I said, this is like it's top tier Star Wars animation for me. Like I think it's the best. The Bad Batch is done, and I thought the Solitary Clone was spectacular. I thought several episodes last season were truly amazing. But this might be the best we've ever seen, and we haven't even gotten to the ending yet. And I love the way that this scene is framed, because they have they say their goodbyes to Rex again. It's like, if you ever need us, we'll be there. And then you see Hunter go up to Echo. And it's like, remember what I told you. And then the way that like Omega is reacting to this, I think, is the way that we all were, because she's like, wait, what do you like? What? Like,
what do you mean by this?
Yeah, like, what do you mean? And they're all saying goodbye. It's like, you're going? And it's like, wait, no, is Echo leaving? And then he like talks to Omega, and it's like, I'm going with Rex. The clones, this is where I'm needed most, which I love that this is the culmination of Echo's arc.
It just makes sense, really.
Yeah,
like it was almost weird that he didn't leave with Rex the first time, because they are so in sync with what they want to do, and you really like you can like Echo says himself, he feels responsible because the batch played into Palpatine's hands. They just, and that's what's kind of brilliant about these episodes, is that we actually, we get a balance of like, you get the immediate, they took down Rampart feeling, but then it's immediately like they didn't win. They failed in their mission, which is like what funnily enough, we were talking about last week.
Is like, we get to see them fail.
We actually see them fail, and how like the Empire weaponizes their actions for its own gain, and how like now Echo feels more than ever that he needs to help his brothers, and he's needed with Rex, which I'm intrigued to see if just like how the Solitary Clone cut away to Crosshair, if we will get an episode that is solely about Echo and Rex, because I think that would absolutely work, and it really would kind of give reason to split him off as well, because then you get to follow those characters, and then you get like a balance, really. And I think
if we did do that, I think it would have more of a feeling of Andor, because we already had kind of two separate storylines. We've got the Bad Batch, and then we've got Crosshair, and now if we split off into a third, then it's very similar to Andor, where we're following all these different characters. It's more of an ensemble show where the characters are connected, but not necessarily their storylines are directly affecting each other. And I think that's really cool, but it would be different for Star Wars animation.
It would kind of take it back to the Clone Wars a little
real
bit.
Quick, for the second week in a row, we have a cameo.
What's up?
Hello
there.
General Kenobi.
You caught it right at the end again, like right as we're talking about Echo leaving.
I knew it. I knew it.
Talking about the heartbreak of Echo leaving. Yeah, we were.
No. So I actually just got done recording Knights of the Nerd Republic, and we talked at length about that moment, and just how my co-host described it as like organically abrupt. Because like it feels abrupt in the moment, but like when you think back on it, it's like, you know what? Yeah, this does make sense, because it's like Echo's been wanting to do more for the longest time, and it's like he's grown up with Rex. Like we've seen Echo and Rex in Clone Wars,
We
as
saw
we will
Echo
discuss.
leave Rex
Homies
in the Bad Batch
reunited.
episodes. And
Yep.
like I mentioned before you got here, they framed the scene in the way where like we're in Omega's perspective of we don't know
Perfect.
Echo's leaving, but the others do. But I just want to read this because Hunter said that line of like wherever you end up, remember what I said, and it calls back to the quote in the Clone Wars season 7 of your path is different like ours. If you ever feel like you don't fit in with them, find us. So
there's
we
the
leading-
possibility that he could
Yeah.
return at some point.
Oh, he's probably
I mean,
going to return.
I
Poetry
think
and
he's
rank.
either returning or all the batch are going to realize no, we need to be there with him.
We need to bail on Sid and come help our bro out.
I think
yeah,
Omega's
for sure.
already there because she witnessed Palpatine just kind of completely turn everything on its head.
That was one of the most
Yeah.
evil things he's ever done.
Oh
Yeah.
god,
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I was
I was saying.
I
all
was
the
so
stuff
under
with
the
Palpatine-
impression.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the same for all you guys, but like I was so under the impression that like, okay, cool, they're gonna do it. The bill's gonna get tabled. It's not gonna pass. They're actually gonna freaking do it. And then I saw Palpatine come up, and I was like, "Fuck!"
Yeah, it's like no, it's not happening.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the alert when that alarm happened. I knew immediately. I was like, "Oh no, oh no!"
But the way
wrinkly
Palpatine did it
that
was just
wrinkly
a
old bastard.
masterclass.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
so manipulative. It was perfectly manipulative. Like he
I
didn't have
thi-
to like get aggressive or anything. He just used his words, which is his
Yeah.
greatest weapon.
I think with that, especially seeing, it's the good actions of individuals that, are creating this hope. Riyo Chuchi, Slip, and Cade, the Bad Batch, it's just little acts that build up to something more. And then even when that happens, for Palpatine to twist that, I think knowing that happens for so long and there are still good people fighting in the galaxy, it makes every triumph over Palpatine, whether that be Luke and Vader, whether that be Rey, like it makes each of those even more prominent and stand out.
Yeah.
Knowing how
Yeah.
evil and manipulative he is, it makes those things even better. So
Yeah, it makes them more
I love getting to
impactful.
see that.
Because, because you know that like you've seen all of the injustice that you see more of the injustice that's being perpetuated by the Empire and by Palpatine. So like when you go back to those moments of victory, they hit all the harder, and it's just a lot more satisfying. But
You know what?
Back
would
to
be
Echoes.
I'm like, if like next week or a couple weeks from now, it's like we get an episode where it's like what we've been talking about, like that kind of like side quest feel, but it's done on purpose. And the whole time, the rest of the batch are like, this doesn't feel right. And then at the end, they all go, no.
Yeah, like a
And they have
solitary
to
clone.
Yeah.
But with like just a Bad Batch episode, it's like, we shouldn't really be going back to this. Like Echo just left. Like we just saw what's going to happen to all the other clones. We kind of need to do something different. It would be really kind of cool because it would remind me a bit. Because I get the sense that the whole series is going to shift now that this has happened.
Yeah.
And if so, it would kind of remind me of like the first season of Doctor Who, because the first season there, like, is a lot lighter. It's a lot lighter. The first season, it's a lot more goofy. You've got your farting aliens. You've got like your weird like skin draped over a mainframe villain that is Cassandra, the last human. But then you get to the episode Dalek, where like the Daleks show up for the first time in the series, and then after that, the whole season gets darker. The stories get darker, more serious. The enemies get a lot scarier. They're a lot less cartoony. And then you get to the finale, and it's a lot more intense. And I think that's what the vibe they're gonna aim for with this. Like we're gonna get a lot more darker stories, a lot more intense explorations of what's going on in the galaxy, because the net is closing in. The batch can't really elude the Empire anymore. Like the Empire is coming for all of the clones now, and that's going to include the batch for sure.
No, you're completely correct there, and I think that's what's going to happen. Like this second half of the season, and again, it's another situation where we don't have any. Like I'm pretty sure all the trailers just had stuff from these first 8 episodes, so everything we know now is going to be a surprise going forward.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited to see where it's going and what happens with Echo and with Rex and the rest of the group and how Crosshair gets involved with all of this. Like we mentioned, next week's episode is called The Crossing, so I feel like that's a perfect time to bring back our favorite sexy voiced Imperial clone back in it. That was
soldiers follow orders.
Yeah. So no, this
That
broke
was pretty
me.
good.
Yeah, I liked that.
Thanks.
This broke me, but I'm very excited to see where it goes. And
yeah, when she hugged him, it was like so emotional. It was like I cracked up there. I genuinely.
I don't want to think about it. Nope. Don't want to think about it. Nope.
The last thing I'll say about Echo.
This is now twice that she's tried to like stop one of her brothers from leaving, and it hasn't worked.
Andrew, I'm gonna have to ask you to stop.
Well, you couldn't have just had the other three just go with them, but they're being weird and not.
I have like
still
two
not there
last
yet.
final thoughts about it. Like, so the first is that I think we've talked about why it's right for Echo to leave, but I also think another reason is that he's not needed as in terms of his function, because he is functioned constantly as the moral center of the group. But now that's going to start to shift to Omega, because Omega, as we've said, is becoming politically awakened. She's aware of the injustice. She literally saw Palpatine use his power to just stomp all over the good they were trying to do for their brothers, for the clones. So she's going to become a lot more. She is now going to be the one saying, Hunter, we need to do more. And the other thing I'll say is that I feel like Echo's departure might serve as like, because if he doesn't rejoin the batch, which he probably will reunite with them a bit, but I almost wonder if, unlike Sabine, he won't reunite with them permanently, and that's going to be the case for the rest of the season, that the batch is slowly going to break apart. They're going to start seeding off into other elements, and Omega is going to just basically be sort of helpless to watch, like this family of hers just sort of spread itself out, because they're all trying to find their purpose, and unfortunately finding their purpose means going off in different directions.
What would be cool is even if it's just briefly, we get like a return or like a modified version of Echo's 501st armor come back.
Yes, with the fucking handprint. Yes.
Yeah.
I'd love that. I've missed that handprint so much.
It would, because we got a little bit
Absolutely.
of it in season 7, but if we get like a slightly different version of it, that would be really cool. Gentlemen, this has been a emotional episode to discuss, so I feel like we've earned this right now. All right.
Oh, that was a brilliant clip audio.
Wrecker just bringing us joy like that. But yeah, no, these were my favorites of the season so far, and when this show does storytelling like this, it's up there with Clone Wars. It's very good, and I'm very excited to see where the rest of the season goes, because admittedly, like last week was the turnaround for me. I thought Tribe was excellent, but there were a couple weeks where I was kind of worried where it was going. Now I'm pretty confident again in what the show is going to do, and I'm very excited. I just thinking about it, like in these episodes, we got Senator Chuchi back, we got Rex back, we got Palpatine. It's just like
Halle Bertoni, Space Marjorie Taylor Greene. We had
Rampart's
so much.
Gone. It's like everything. We're checking all those boxes. So again, these were great. Thank you for joining us for our discussion of the Clone Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences. We will be back, of course, next week to talk about episode 9 of the season. Caleb, thanks for joining us. The Dave Filoni of TikTok. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed talking about Clone Force 99 with us. Where can everyone find you? And if you want to tell us what you're working on right now.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's been cool to talk about these episodes with you guys.
Yeah.
I'm on, I think, basically every platform, either at Indioda or Indioda13 over on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Instagram. Check out my Bad Batch reactions. I do reactions to each episode over on my YouTube channel. And yeah, Dave Filoni skits on TikTok as well. So yeah, that's about.
Do you have reactions for the most recent episodes up yet? Or
I do. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
They come out the same night.
Make sure to check them out. Yeah, no, that'll be really cool.
Mr. Cameo for the second week in a row, stopping in the last 10 minutes of the episode. Where can everyone find you? And if you want to plug what you just recorded,
Twitter and Hive. Even though I don't use don't use Hive. I can't speak right now. Twitter and Hive at Depa Banana. I talk Star Wars, sports, Go Birds. Instagram, Conman JFO. Don't really use it too much. I co-host Knights of the Nerd Republic over at the Nerd Academy podcast. I was just on there talking these episodes of Bad Batch, and so I figured hop on over here if they're still going. You can check that out. We have, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, pretty much everywhere you listen to podcasts. We're pretty much probably on it. If we're not, let us know. Same with For the Republic. If we're not on something that you listen to, let us know. I write questions and co-host Star Wars in a Galaxy Epic Confrontations. You can find our past matches over at the Star Wars in a Galaxy YouTube channel. It's really fun. And then sweditor.ig.com/fiction. I write articles, which I haven't done in forever. But I mainly help to create a connected universe of Star Wars fan stories. As of today, we have 19 stories published, with many more on the way. I don't have any published yet. I have a few in development, one of which is coming out in April, and it's it's about one of my favorite Jedi, Cal Kestis, and it's set sometime after Fallen Order. I don't know when exactly, because got to figure out when Battle Scars is and all that. But yeah.
It's already helped your story as well. Like we've talked about that. It's
awesome. That excerpt there's a certain part in the excerpt by Sam Meggs that I was like, oh crap.
Thanks
really
a lot,
helps.
Sam. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Don, how about you?
All right, so you can find me on Twitter at Donovan Mead. I tweet about Star Wars, Marvel, politics, Doctor Who, like just DC. A lot of pop culture stuff. You can also find me on Instagram at Donovan_McComish. You can find me on Hive and TikTok under the same username at Donovan McComish. I've not used my TikTok for ages, but I have actually just started using it again, mostly just like outdoor videos and some gaming stuff from my Switch. You can also find me on sweditor.ig.com, where Connor and Andrew, I write articles. My most recent article was some months ago about a potential Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2. And I'm also a writer for SWEF. I've written one story that was published back in June. It's called Scars of War. It stars a clone trooper called Blister, who is hiding out on a planet in the Outer Rim 5 years after Order 66, and he meets a Jedi survivor called Shar Kun. And there is a mystery threat that is coming after both of them, and they have to band together and confront their collective trauma over the past in order to survive. It was a lot of fun to write, and if you enjoy reading Star Wars that deals with pain and post-traumatic stress disorder, then I encourage you to give it a read. And I also have to shout out Jake, who is not here, but who did some fantastic cover artwork for the story. It was really good.
So good. As for myself, you can find me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at Starlight Andrew, where I'll be talking a lot about my new son, Nubs, from Young Jedi Adventures.
So adorable.
May the 4th is going to be a great day for us animation fans, because we get the first episode of that, and we get all of Vision Season 2, so I'm going to be fed. I got to remember to take work off that day. And then the podcast, you can find us on Twitter at For the Repub Pod, on Instagram and TikTok at For the Republic Pod. We post a lot of clips from the episodes, and we let you know when new stuff of ours is dropping and in production. So make sure you follow us there, and also our YouTube page, For the Republic Podcast. Get us to 100 subs so we can start doing some fun live content there as well. We're hovering around the 50 range right now, so get us there. And then next week, we should have we've said this, I think, the past 2 weeks now, but we should have the conclusion of our Clone Wars Season 1 coverage and our watch along with the Ryloth arc. I got to go back and watch those episodes again because I watched them 2 weeks ago.
Same. So did I.
We'll have that, and we'll also have our recap for episode 9. So from Don, Connor, Caleb, and myself, thank you for joining us. And until next time, may the Force be with you always.